Hello, my beautiful people. How are you today? Welcome to YouTube.
Hello, my fellow influencers. This is Donald with Show Me Your ID, and today we're going to discover how God can identify His loyal people. Stay tuned.
On your knees now.
How does God keep it real? Does He have a people on this earth, and how do we know? God has to have a way to be able to identify His loyal people. What does the Bible have to say? Revelation 12 and verse 17 tell us the two identifying marks of God's people. They keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus. This is why the dragon, also known as Satan, is angry. When I was a kid, I used to really dislike history. I thought it was rather boring and there wasn't much need for it. But as I grew older, and now, of course, I find there's great significance in history because it really does show us the battle between good and evil. I'm reminded of a time in Israel's history where they had shown their disobedience and allegiance, their loyalty to God. They had done something that Samuel at the time was a judge. He was disheartened that they had made this decision. And that decision was to ask a king. They wanted a king. In 1 Samuel 8 verses 19 and 20 we read these words. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, Nay, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. Interesting, they wanted a king to be like other nations, and these nations around them were pagan. So they wanted like a leadership that was contrary to God. God had been their leader all through the wilderness journey when they traveled out of Egypt and walked along so many beaten paths for many, many years. And here they come to the point where they want a king like other nations. Thankfully and fortunately, Israel realized that they had done something dreadfully wrong when they asked for a king. They realized that they had lost the king that they had rightfully all those years traveling, as we mentioned, through all these difficult journeys that they had. And that king was a heavenly king. That king was Jesus. But they asked for an earthly king, and they realized in 1 Samuel 12, verse 19, that they made a rather horrible choice to ask for a king, which they asked for this king who was actually a foot taller than all the rest. He was fine in stature. He looked handsome. His name was Saul, and Saul became king over Israel. Yes, he made some really bad choices. He disobeyed God. He went ahead before Samuel and did some sacrifices. He left some kings behind he was supposed to destroy. So God over time began to withdraw, in a sense, his spirit from Saul. And Saul at one point had done something interesting. He had drove out all the witches and wizards out of Israel. So they had to kind of hide away and obscure. But as he grew more and more, I guess, wicked and getting more and more separated from God, he began to do something incredible. He sought after a witch that he had drove out. So he went to this witch of Endor, asking for her to do something because he had no other way of getting any spiritual knowledge because wisdom was being withdrawn from him as he got more and more wicked. And this spiritual knowledge, he went to a witch. He said, I would like for you to conjure up someone for me, and that is Samuel. But this was not Samuel. It was a demonic being, as this witch realized, Saul, you tricked me. Why did you trick me? And as she conjured up Samuel, this demon posing as Samuel, Saul was told that he would die in battle along with his sons. And yes, it came to fruition. And the sad reality is that Saul had to fall on his own sword as the Philistine army was coming towards him. He even asked for his armor bearer, run me through, and the armor bearer said, how can I touch God's anointed? Interesting enough, when we become disobedient to God, this is what happens. The Spirit is being withdrawn slowly from us. And we lose the grace and the mercy that God has given to us, and He protects us. We lose that protection. So Israel realized right away they had done something terribly wrong by asking them a king. They were disobedient to God, and God was not completely withdrawing himself from the people, but as they asked for a king, this Saul, who became very wicked, as we talked about, seeking even after a witch, who became so desperate he ran to a witch to get information or knowledge, even from demons, demon spirits. That's pretty scary when you get to that low. But they realized this. It says in 1 Samuel 12, verse 19, "And all the people said unto Samuel, Pray for thy servants unto thy Lord, that we die not, for we have added unto all our sins this evil, to ask us a king." To ask us a king. So one of the identifying marks of the enemy's territory is we're disobedient. But there is another side of the token, that is God's people, and they are obedient and faithful. There was raised up a young man by the name of David, who we know, as the story goes, many of us have heard of it, David and Goliath, as Saul himself, being king, was too cowardly, which was a foot taller than everybody else, to fight this giant. David was sent on an errand to give food to his brothers. They call victuals or food. He was sent to give them food from his father, and the brothers thought, what is this little kind of pipsqueak doing here? Well, he said, who is this man that defies our God? And so he asked of Saul, let me go out there and fight this man. And so Saul even gave him his armor, and he tried it on. He said, I couldn't fit it. It didn't fit me properly. Just let me go out there with what I have on and just a sling, and it's 5 stones. And 1 stone he pulled from his pocket, and he told this giant, you dare defy our God, God of Israel? I come to you in the name of the Lord, and I will have your head. I will cut it with your own sword. So that's what literally happened. Of course, we realize then after that, many of the women were singing songs. Saul killed his thousands, and David his 10,000. So there began the jealous streak of Saul. Saul wanted to kill David. We talked about that a little bit earlier, a couple previous videos, that Saul was seeking after David's life. He kept throwing javelins at him. He kept chasing after him. He had informants going to different places saying, David is here, David is there. Interestingly enough, that Jonathan, Saul's son, was to be next in line for king, but he knew that God had chosen David to be the next king. So he even gave him his garment, his sword, his shield. He gave him all that, and it was knitted up as brothers. They loved one another as brothers. But Saul, the father, wanted nothing to do but he was so determined he wanted to destroy David. And interestingly enough, there is a reason why I believe that he was hunted down so badly. One is to keep him humble. That'd be kind of difficult, once you kind of slow down, and there's peace, sometimes you make really bad choices. But also there's a second reason. I believe that through David would come a particular lineage. This particular lineage would be a seed or a people or a person, I should say, that would do something, would rule forever. And I'm going to read this out of it's out of 2 Samuel 7, verse 16. It says this is speaking, and your house and your kingdom shall be established forever. Before you, your throne shall be established forever. And who is the only one that can have a throne forever? Well, through the lineage of David comes this man named, this fully God, fully man named Jesus. Jesus came through Mary, who was a descendant of David. And it's an amazing story how God had preserved him a people, but through those people would come this king who would rule not only the earth, but also heaven. And this is what even Jesus himself writes in Revelation 22 in verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright and morning star. So here, even through Jesus' own mouth, he writes this, that he testifies that he is the root and the offspring of David. Some other interesting factors to note about David: he was very loyal and obedient to Saul. Even though Saul would throw javelins at him and try to destroy him, several times David had opportunity to really kill Saul, and his men were like, kill him, this is your opportunity. But David knew that Saul was God's anointed, but here is again Saul, who is slowly dwindling into this dark path. But David would not touch Saul. So David had this heart. He wanted to see Saul turn around, make a change. Saul wanted to destroy David so he could basically kill that lineage that would bring Jesus into this world. And if it wasn't for Jesus, could we really ultimately keep the commandments? No, we could not, because we can do all things through Christ. He does strengthen us. And those of us in these last few moments in this earth's history, if we keep those commandments, those 10 principles of life, the benefits that he has given us to keep, he will protect us. Even though some of us may succumb to having have to face death, you will have to suffer many things for his name's sake. Many people will persecute you in his name.
because they don't know him, so they don't know you. So we do have to hold firmly strong to the end, that we do look to God's word, learn about who he is, and we can find about his character through his commandments, and realize that if we keep those things, it says in 1 John 4:19, we love him because he first loved us. And again, Jesus does tell us again in John 14 verse 15, if you love me, keep my commandments. And I think that I can say this, if you love me, you will desire and want to keep my commandments, because I paid the price for you so you can make it in the kingdom. Thank you guys for viewing this video. I pray it has blessed and encouraged you. Again, there's one more component to this identity of God's people, and that is, one is again to keep the commands of God, and the second is the faith of Jesus, which we'll explore in the next episode of this two-part series. We just pray that this encourages you and blesses you. And again, please leave a comment, maybe give it a thumbs up, or if you have not subscribed already, please consider subscribing. There will be more videos coming in the future. This has been just a blessed journey, and I'm just happy to travel with you. And again, the identity journey does start here.